Hello, y'all. Let's do this cute mushroom house illustration together. So let's get started by pulling out all of our supplies. We only have a few for this tutorial to make it easy for you all. I have my Shroomy Little Gnomes dot grid notepad, and I'm also pulling out a few fine liners, pencils, and erasers from my Shroomy Little Gnomes small pouch. So I'm going to get into these supplies in a second here. You don't have to have exactly what I have here, but I'm going to show you everything and link everything below just in case you do want to have the exact things that I'm using here. As you can see, that's just a dot grid spiral notebook. Those are available in my shop, and those are my Shroomy Little Gnome illustrations on the front. I have a pencil and an eraser, our white Jelly Roll gel pen as always, and then I have 3 fine liners here. You don't need 3, but I do think you need at least 2 of varying sizes. So I have an 08, 03, and a 005 size, and you'll see how I kind of use those when we get to the inking portion. But now we're going to go in with the sketch, and we're going to do the big mushroom, the big main part of the mushroom house first. So I zoomed in just a little bit for you here, and I'm going very lightly. You can kind of barely see what I'm doing on the page, but as I kind of sketch a little more, you'll be able to see a darker line there. I'm trying to make sure on this step that I am noting where the middle of the page is and trying to keep these lines somewhat even. So I'm not going for straightness of these lines because we want this to be kind of whimsical, and we don't really get straight lines in nature to that degree, but I just want them to be kind of even, kind of start at the same place and end at the same place at the same angle on the page. Next, we're going to do the cap of the mushroom, and I'm doing this a little bit differently than I did my mushrooms before. I'm going to link a video in the cards where I showed you how I draw my little mushrooms with acrylic markers, how I did them in my planner one time. But in this case, we're making kind of like this double bottom. So everything you're seeing now will be the bottom of the cap of the mushroom. And you can see it kind of looks like that stem is going up into the cap. So that's what that smaller arch there is for. And then the larger arch is the actual bottom of this mushroom. So it's going to kind of look like we are at a lower angle, even though this tiny little mushroom house will be on the ground. It's like we're on the ground kind of looking up a little bit into the top of the mushroom. So now I'm putting the cap on the mushroom, and I started it just a little lower than the bottom of the mushroom, and I'm erasing a little bit because I want some bumps and wiggles in the cap. I like my mushrooms to look kind of weird. I don't like for the cap to look perfectly ovaled at the top. And now we're going to do a cute little door. We're going to start with this arch in the center of the middle of the bottom of the main house part. And then you can decorate around your arch however you want to, but I'm just putting these little stone like I guess ovals. So they're kind of like rectangular ovals that I'm making there. And I thought that this would be really easy for you all to get because these ovals don't have to be the same size. They don't have to be the same shape. And you just want to fit them all around. So we don't want to worry too much about making perfectly sized ovals. I finished the door off with a doorknob and a little keyhole down there. If you want to, it'd be super cute to put a little window in the door as well. I'm going to do 2 little windows above the door frame. And I'm making my windows, in this case, look like little ovals. But I've also done this before. You all might have seen in my March Bujo setup where I did these as little arches. So that's an option for you as well. And then for the March Bujo, I did like greenery at the bottom, kind of like falling from the windows. In this case, I'm going to do those same stone patterns. And like I said, I chose these because they're super easy to kind of just like sketch in. We're going to go back over all of this with the fine liners. That's why we're kind of going with a soft, dainty touch here with the pencil. And now I'm going to do, so I'm making like the little lip that kind of, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like a little lip on a mushroom that kind of gives it a little bit of depth. And now we're going in and placing our little holes, those little mushroom holes, wherever you want to. But to give it some interest, I like to place some that look like they're kind of going over the top of the mushroom. So those are the ones that look like they're a little bit cut off by the top of the mushroom cap there. And I like to make my little holes in kind of oblong shapes, oblong, roundy looking shapes. But you can do just little dots if you want that too. Now that we're done with the main structure, I'm going to add some little accent mushrooms. So you all said you wanted a tutorial from the Shroomy Little Gnome set with mushrooms, but I thought about the fact that I had already given you mushrooms in that planner decoration video. And so I wanted to give you something that was a little more interesting, but still something that I thought could be easy. And so we're doing this house. It's a bunch of easy lines and curves that look more complicated when you aren't following a tutorial like this. But I think that if you follow along with the tutorial and you see that we're just doing one thing at a time, that you will notice that this is actually a lot easier to create this cute little intricate looking mushroom house than you might have thought. So I'm just adding similar mushrooms or differing mushrooms in a similar technique all the way, just in different spots around the house. Feel free to add yours wherever you want them to be, but I always start with the stem and then I go into making the cap fit around the stem. So try different shapes, sizes, and lengths of stems with different shapes and sizes of caps as well. I wanted to keep this kind of whimsical, and I love drawing flowers, so I thought, hey, let's add a few kind of weedy looking flowers here. So I'm just drawing this flower that looks like it's kind of sitting off to the side, and I'm adding the petals in, and I'm just going to add a little stem and then these fun little leaves. Of course, if there are any flowers that you like to draw, then replace what I've drawn here with the flowers that you like to draw best. But these are flowers that I kind of draw all the time, especially in these fun, cute little illustrations. You will see these all over my illustrations and my coloring books when I'm drawing just something cute. These leaves in flower shapes are easy to draw, and they're hard to mess up because you can pretty much just make the branches come off of any direction that you want to. I will say make sure that you follow the direction of your branches and stems when you're drawing in the leaves. So don't have the stem kind of going off to the left, but then the point of the leaf is going to the right or something. And now I'm just adding those little spots, those mushroom spots, to these smaller mushrooms there. Now I waited before putting these onto the smaller mushrooms because I wasn't sure if I wanted them there. So that's just a little tip. Draw the big elements first and then go in a little bit with your details to ensure that you actually want them where you think you want them. Now I'm just showing you how I would add that veining around the mushrooms, and I'm thinking here about whether or not I want to do that with the pencil, because when I get ready to do it with the fine liners, I'll have to erase it anyway, and I decide against it. I'm gonna go in here and draw these little grass shapes and a few more smaller weed flowers down there. So when I draw grass, I like to draw kind of like these thick blade looking pieces and then just some simple strokes, and then that gives it kind of like some depth and interest on the page. And since I already have two of those flowers that kind of look like the petals are kind of coming down, I wanted to draw one flower that looks like it's facing right at you. And then I'm just filling in the space with leaves. Make sure that some of your leaves appear to be going behind things and others appear to be going in front of things. And that's how we're giving it a little more depth here. I felt like the house could use a little more embellishment. So I'm just adding a little flower here. And then I think I'm going to add two little kind of like leafy shapes on either side of that flower. But it would look super cute if you did 3 flowers at the top, one really big flower, maybe like a flower bouquet or something like that. So let your imagination fly free and you kind of come up with your own designs and illustrations here. If you are following along with me, I'd love to see your work. Please share it with me on social media at I Have Plans For You. I am on Instagram and TikTok. But also, I am going to give my Patreon members a coloring sheet of this illustration. And we'll get to that in a little while when we start inking. And this is really kind of a good way for you all to see how I would go about illustrating a coloring sheet as well. Let me know in the comments if you're enjoying this tutorial, and I would love to know what you want me to draw next. If you've seen, then I do have the Pretty Yummy Treats collection of stickers in my shop now. And so I'm sure that you all want to see how to draw a few of those items. So let me know. This did actually come from viewer suggestions for me to do this tutorial for the mushrooms. I zhuzhed it up a little bit and did the house. But you see me going in now with my largest size fine liner to do the bigger outlines. So in my case, my largest size is an 08 size. Many people have their largest size as a 05 size. That's fine, but I would just say whatever your largest size is, do those largest elements in that largest size fine liner. If you're not sure that you want something in this larger size, then just wait. Don't outline it yet. Outline other things and see if you think it'll clash or if it'll be too pronounced after you finish outlining everything that you really do want to outline. So now I'm going in with the 03 size and I'm doing those smaller, less delicate details. So we're not doing like the veining or anything with this 03 size, but I'm filling in the smaller leaves, all of the mushroom holes, any large detail lines like you see there on the cap of that mushroom where we gave it a little bit of depth for that house there. Any of my larger details, I would say, I'm doing with this 03 size. Now, if you only have 2 fine liners, you may want to do these larger details with your larger fine liner so that there is a bigger difference between the look of your smaller details and your main lines on the page. As you can see too, I wanted to do the flowers and the leaves at the bottom with this 03 size fine liner as well. And you all, this is really preference. It's up to you how fine or thick you want your lines to be. Of course, some things look a little bit better when they're larger and, you know, it's easier to do tinier lines with smaller brush tips. With smaller nibs, but it is really preference. So if you're looking at mine and you're like, oh, I wish that was much more pronounced, then make it more pronounced on your page with a thicker fine liner. So as you can see, I'm starting to add a few of the small details now with those little shine marks on the windows. But before I get into those delicate details, I need to erase my pencil marks because I can see my pencil marks now and I will get confused about where I put those smaller details if I don't erase now. So now I'm going to go in, do some shading. I specifically chose to stick with kind of like a hatch shading in this piece, just so that we can kind of stay consistent if you're new to doing any of this. But under the caps of all of those mushrooms, I am going to do a cross hatch where you basically just make tick marks in both directions to create darker spaces. I'm also creating that veining on the mushrooms, as you can see. I am doing details on the flowers. When you do the veining on the flowers, be sure to make sure that those lines go in the direction of the petal that you're drawing on. You see, I did a bit of hatching on the stamen for the flower that's kind of peeking out the top of the mushroom house. I'm thinking and considering whether or not I want to do some details on the leaves, but I'm going to just keep going until I determine what I want to do there. Now, when you see the mushroom spots, a lot of times they're kind of indented into the mushrooms. So we're going to create the illusion of that depth by basically making a little shadow on one side of these holes. Now, one thing you want to think about is, what side do you want all of your shadows to be on? It looks more realistic when all the shadows are on the same side, because that way it looks like the light is coming from the same direction. And I'm just going back in and filling in those spaces with those little hash tick marks. This would be a perfect time to determine where you want shading, lighter spots or darker spots, or even places that look like glimmers of light are hitting them. They might be different on your page than what I have on mine. So kind of decide that. If you're unsure, of course, go back in with your pencil to make sure that you like what you're seeing on your page, and then do it with your fine liner. I'm doing the little veining on the mushroom here. Make sure that your lines are spiraling out in a circular way. Like, make sure that the lines are following the circular shape, as you can see I'm doing there. And this doesn't have to be perfect, because even though we're kind of drawing something that isn't real, the idea is that it occurs in nature. So, the lines don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be perfectly spaced. You can go back in and fill some spaces in if you need to. Just FYI, before I put in the details is when I would have stopped for the coloring page. So the coloring page on Patreon is actually going to be the page before I picked up this 005 size here and started in with the smaller details. That way you can color the details the way that you want them. I see a lot of the coloring pages now that have all those smaller details there, and I feel like it kind of takes away from the coloring experience. You let me know how you feel about that in the comments below, but I know I like for a cleaner coloring sheet so that I can shade and add shadow where I want it to be. So that will be over on Patreon, and I will have it linked below. It's patreon.com/IHavePlansForYou. And everyone at every tier will get that coloring sheet. But I have multiple tiers over there that offer different things, so go check it out. And let's just continue adding our little details. I'm just filling in the rest of those mushroom spots. I've seen them called mushroom spots, and I've seen them called mushroom holes. I think spots may be more accurate. And now I'm adding just a little bit of texture on the bricks. And I decided to go in and see what some extra detail on the leaves would look like. I like the way that it looks, so I'm going to go ahead and add just some to one side each of each leaf. You can add it to both if you like. If I didn't like that, then I would have gone in with that white jelly roll and just gotten rid of them, and nobody would have ever known they were there. But I feel like this was much quicker and easier than a lot of you probably thought when you see these cute little mushroom houses. Let me know if that's the case in the comments, if this was as easy as I thought it was, if I did a good job teaching you all. But here we are, we're all finished. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel and share with me what you created on my social media. I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.